Coronation Street spoilers for Thursday, the 31st of July tease that Theo Silverton's charming smile may be hiding a darker truth, hinting at the first wave of suspicion that will soon wash over the lives of those who dare to trust him. Todd stood at the edge of the Rover's return's well-worn carpet, swirling his pint as if the liquid might reveal answers he could not articulate. He remembered the social worker's words now as though they were etched in his mind. There are concerns about Theo's methods, violent methods, wherever his felt crossed. At the time, Todd had brushed them aside, choosing instead to believe in the man he had grown to care for. But as the Golden Jubilee decorations shimmered in the late afternoon light, Todd felt the weight of that warning settle uncomfortably on his shoulders. It began with small inconsistencies. Theo's easy laugh would sometimes cut off abruptly, replaced by a stare so cold Todd thought his partner might be lost behind a mask. Todd tried to rationalize those moments: stress at work, worries about the upcoming meeting with social services to discuss access to Theo's children, but each explanation felt increasingly hollow. The social worker's report, which Todd had glanced at in Theo's flat, spoke of a pattern. Whenever Theo felt powerless or diminished, he reverted to force, using his physical strength to reclaim control. Recalling the report, Todd's heart pounded. He replayed the scene in his mind: the community center where Theo had joined a discussion about mental health, the heated argument that escalated when someone questioned Theo's qualifications, and then the harsh shove that sent a chair crashing. Theo had claimed the chair, just toppled under his own weight, but Todd knew better. He had seen the bruise on Theo's forearm days later, and heard the whispers around the center. Now, the bruise on Todd's own confidence formed with each memory that resurfaced. The harbinger of fear came on a cloudy Tuesday morning during Noah's presentation at Weatherfield Comprehensive. Noah had invited them both, Todd and Theo, to witness his speech on community outreach. As he spoke passionately about supporting vulnerable youth, Todd felt a swell of pride. But when Theo's ex-wife had emerged from the back of the room, intent on collecting her son, Theo's composure had fractured. His voice thundered across the hall as he stepped forward to intercept her. There was a sudden blur of motion, Theo's fist connecting with his ex-wife's shoulder, the gasps of onlookers, and the sharp thud as her son, Jacob, stepped between them and took the blow meant for his mother. Todd's chest constricted at the recollection. He remembered rushing to Jacob's side, the boy's eyes wide with fear, a trickle of blood at his hairline. Theo had looked stricken in that moment, more by the sudden exposure of his violent streak than by concern for the boy. Afterwards, Todd confronted him in the parking lot. "What were you thinking?" he had demanded, voice shaking. Theo had knelt beside Jacob, murmuring apologies that sounded hollow. "He shouldn't have tried to protect her," Theo muttered to Todd once Jacob was safe. Todd recalled the icy dread creeping up his spine then. That moment changed everything. It explained why Theo's ex had fought to keep him away from his own children, and why divorce papers lay unsigned for months before she'd finally submitted them. In the days that followed, Todd noticed signs of Theo's past scattered like shards in every corner of his life. Old newspaper clippings about domestic disturbances, hushed conversations he overheard in the community center. And in Theo's modest flat, hidden behind a framed family photo, a stack of letters from solicitors and child services. Theo's face, usually so composed, would darken when Todd casually reached for them. "That's personal," Theo would growl. But Todd, ever the optimist, clung to the idea that love could conquer all. He threw himself into cheering up his father, George, who was struggling with the isolation that came after his wife's death. The solution seemed simple: a day at the races, where the veteran punter could feel the thrill of the track once more. Todd enlisted Theo's help. Surely Theo would relish the chance to bond with his prospective father-in-law. Instead, Theo had bristled. He claimed, on the morning of the race, to have a splitting headache. In truth, he had been seething at the idea of spending a jovial day that did not center on him. He barked at Todd when he tried to rouse him, insisting on returning home before the first race was even called. Todd's cheeks flushed with humiliation as he watched Theo retreat to the car, hand pressed to his temple, the curt refusal echoing in George's hopeful gaze. That evening, at Dev Alahan's stag do in the snug down by the canal, Todd tried again to assert normalcy. Drinks flowed, laughter soared alongside the canal boats, and for a fleeting moment, Todd felt free. He danced badly to an off-key karaoke rendition of Sweet Caroline, oblivious to the tension hot on his heels. Late into the night, Todd slipped away from the group to make plans with Summer Spellman, just a quiet dinner and a film, he thought. When he returned to Theo, glass halfway to his lips, Theo's glance was icy. "You're ignoring me," Theo snapped, voice low but thundering in Todd's chest. He grabbed Todd's arm, twisting it until a gasp escaped. Surrounding revelers stilled, the jukebox rhymed over the confrontation. Todd forced calm, yanking his arm free. "I'm not ignoring you," he protested. "I just need some time." But Theo cut him off with a sneer, eyes ablaze. "No, you need to pay attention to me." And then he walked away, leaving Todd to collect pitying looks as he nursed his arm. Summer later approached Todd, concern knotting her brow. "He did that to you?" she whispered, glancing around. "That's not right." Todd nodded, ashamed. He had trained himself to excuse the bruises, rationalize the fury, but he could no longer hide from the truth. There was a pattern, uncontrolled temper flares, that left Todd constantly second-guessing his every move. Yet alongside the cruelty, Theo displayed a magnetic charisma that kept pulling Todd back. He could be gentle, so gentle, when Todd's anxiety peaked. He could cradle him, whisper assurances that washed away the sting of fear, only to remind Todd moments later that he had better not test Theo's patience again. This push-pull dynamic spun Todd into a daze, an emotional oscillation that he mistook for passion. The real test came as the appointment with social services loomed, a chance for Theo to prove he had changed and deserved supervised visits with Jacob and his daughter, Emily. Todd watched as Theo prepared for the meeting, reading his case notes, practicing soft tones, even performing breathing exercises. For a moment, Todd believed in Theo's capacity for growth. Together, they emerged from the house, united, determined. On the way, a detour through the market led to an unexpected crisis. Oddie, the young man known for his occasional clumsiness and heavier consumption of spirits at Carla's community events, lurched out of the alleyway in a drunken haze. Theo instinctively reached to steady him, but Oddie slipped, striking the pavement hard. Blood stained the cobblestones as Theo performed CPR under the watchful eyes of bystanders. The sight of Theo's panic, his hands trembling, shouldered Todd with relief. Theo knelt beside Oddie until the ambulance arrived, then turned with tear-filled eyes to Todd. "He almost died," Theo choked, voice cracking. But that fragile vulnerability was shattered when the uniformed police appeared, their expressions grave. "We need to ask you a few questions about what happened," one officer said, glancing at Theo's stained shirt. Theo nodded numbly, and Todd saw fear flicker across those dark eyes. He realized then that Theo had secrets even deeper than the social worker's report. Billy, ever watchful, intercepted Todd outside the station once Theo was inside. "I saw him go in with the cops," Billy whispered, brow furrowed. "Something's off. He looked like he'd been expecting them." Todd's mind raced. What else could Theo be hiding? What dark chapters of his past might emerge under that harsh interrogation light? That evening, Todd lay awake in their bed, heart pounding. The events of the day crashed through his thoughts. Oddie's crash, Theo's confrontation with the law, social services looming, the bruise on Jacob's head. Childhood images of a protective father skewed into nightmare visions of Theo's fists. What kind of man had Todd fallen for? One who could shelter him from fear and yet sow it so expertly in the same breath. Despite the questions, Todd found himself unable to stay away from Theo. He crept to the station at midnight, joining George and Summer in wait, hoping for word. When Theo finally emerged, face drawn, suit stained, he greeted Todd with a tentative smile, as though begging forgiveness for sins yet unnamed. Todd reached for his hand, the uncertainty knotting in his chest. Theo's ex-wife's words haunted him, he changes. He gets better. And then, one day, the usual Theo returns. Todd felt the truth of that warning pulse beneath his skin. He had to know what lay behind Theo's calm veneer. Whether it was love or fear that guided him, Todd resolved he would uncover the secrets Theo had buried, before their entire world was shattered beyond repair. And so, as the lampposts flickered and Weatherfield slept around them, Todd found himself at a crossroads. Stay and risk losing himself to Theo's mercurial grasp, or step away into the cold night and demand answers that might destroy them both. The choice felt impossible, but one that Todd knew he could not avoid. The first rays of dawn crept through the curtains as Todd's mind raced with possibilities. He could still hear the echo of Theo's tentative smile as the metal doors of the police station clanged shut behind him. Todd rose from the bed, heart hammering, and dressed quietly. Outside, Weatherfield was painted silver by the early light, a deceptive calm that matched the uneasy peace within Todd's chest. Todd found Summer and George huddled on the station steps, their faces drawn with worry. George rose to his feet at Todd's approach, blinking back tears. They said it could be hours, he whispered. He's been through the ringer already. Summer placed a hand on Todd's arm. Whatever happens, we're here, she reassured him. Just, be careful. Todd nodded, though he wasn't sure what being careful meant when the ground beneath his feet felt so unsteady. He replayed every interaction, every angry glare from Theo over the past weeks, searching for clues. Only one thing was certain. Theo's past was far from the closed chapter he'd pretended it to be. Inside the station, the corridors smelled of bleach and tension. Todd offered his name and told the desk sergeant he'd come to see Theo. The man gave him a thin smile. He's being interviewed, he said. Wait over there. Todd sank into a plastic chair, fingers twisting together as he waited. The interview room's one-way mirror glowed with artificial light. Through its unseeing surface, Todd glimpsed Theo seated alone, hands clasped on the table. His suit was rumpled, his hair mussed as though he'd run his fingers through it in frustration. When the door finally opened, a policewoman stepped out and motioned to Theo. He stood, shoulders squared, and strode toward Todd. Their eyes met, and Todd saw exhaustion, and something darker, a flicker of defiance. Outside, the policewoman, Detective Sergeant Patel, addressed them in low tones. We'll need you to come down to give your statement, Mr. Tinker, she said to Todd. And Mr. Silverton, you'll be released once we've sorted the paperwork, pending further inquiries. Todd's stomach churned. He hadn't expected to be drawn into Theo's legal troubles. But as he watched Theo nod and slip away handcuffed, Todd realized the chasm between them had grown too wide for simple explanations. Over the next 2 days, Todd's routine fractured. He gave statements to the police about what he'd seen with Oddie, how Theo had tried to help, how the accident unfolded, but he could not shake the unease that had lodged itself in his bones. The social workers' meeting loomed on the horizon like a storm cloud, and Todd knew Theo's chances of seeing his children hinged on that 1 hour in an austere council room. Billy, never one to mince words, cornered Todd outside Roy's Rolls. You'll play acting, he said. You're in over your head with this bloke. He's not changing, he's just good at hiding the real him when he needs to. His eyes were grim. If you go into that hearing without proof of progress, the social worker will see through him like glass. Todd bristled. He loved Theo, for all his faults, and wanted to believe in his capacity to grow. His trying, Todd protested. His learning to control himself. You saw how he practiced his breathing. Billy shook his head. He's a master manipulator. You'll be next. Then, softer, you deserve better, mate. The social services meeting was held in a cramped conference room at the Weatherfield Community Center. Across the table sat Leslie Connors, a stern social worker with sharp eyes, Theo's ex-wife, Amanda, arms folded, and a legal advisor for children's welfare. Todd took a seat beside Theo, offering a small, nervous smile. Leslie began by reviewing Theo's file, the domestic incident at Noah's presentation, the restraining order, the letters from Amanda detailing years of emotional abuse, and the recent altercation with Oddie. Theo's brow furrowed as Leslie recited each entry. Mr. Silverton, Leslie said, the court needs assurance that you can maintain a safe, stable environment for Jacob and Emily. Can you explain what steps you've taken to address your anger management? Theo inhaled deeply. I've been attending sessions with a counselor, he said, voice steady. I've completed anger management workshops, and I practice mindfulness daily. Todd here can attest to my progress. Todd glanced at Leslie, then at Amanda, whose lips were pressed into a thin line. Summer and Billy hovered in the back of the room, lending silent support. Todd cleared his throat. I've seen Theo work hard. He's genuinely committed to change, he said. He takes his exercises seriously, and has never lashed out at me. At least, not since he realized how wrong he was. Leslie's pen hovered. Mr. Tinker, have you witnessed any violent outbursts or intimidation? Todd hesitated. He thought of the bruised arm at Dev's stag do, of the cold glare in the Rover's snug when he tried to plan a night out. He forced himself to speak truthfully. I've seen glimpses of his old behavior. But each time, he's remorseful. He's apologized and sought help. Amanda leaned forward. Remorseful after the fact doesn't undo the damage he's done. Jacob is still frightened of him. Emily draws pictures of Theo with a scowl. Her voice cracked. Children remember. The legal advisor chimed in, we will need weekly supervised visits for the next 3 months. If there are no incidents, we can consider increasing contact. Leslie added, and Mr. Silverton, you'll need to continue your therapy, including couples counseling with Mr. Tinker. We need to see consistency. Theo exhaled, relief and frustration warring in his eyes. Todd reached for his hand. We'll do whatever it takes, he whispered. Outside, the sky had darkened to a deep slate, an afternoon storm gathering strength. As they left the community center, rain began to spatter the pavement. Billy and Summer flanked them, umbrellas held overhead. Theo's shoulders hunched against the drizzle. Todd slipped an arm around him. We'll make this work, Todd said gently, though doubt laced his words. One step at a time. Theo offered a cautious smile. Thank you, he murmured. But when Todd looked closer, he saw Theo's eyes dart away, as if already plotting the next move. That evening, the group gathered at Summer's flat for a debrief. George joined via video call from his home, cheeks flushed with excitement that Theo had regained some supervised access. This is good news, he said. You did it, lads. Todd smiled tiredly. It's a start, he agreed. But it's only the beginning. In the kitchen, Billy uncapped a bottle of wine. To small victories, he toasted. The others clinked glasses. But as the wine flowed, Todd sensed the atmosphere strain, tension coiling beneath polite conversation. Theo excused himself to take a call, his counselor checking in, he later claimed. In the bedroom, he paced, phone pressed to his ear. Todd followed, voice low. You okay? Theo ended the call abruptly. Fine, he snapped. Don't worry about it. Todd hesitated, then took a cautious step forward. I'm worried, Theo. You seem distant. Theo rounded on him. You think I'm lying to you? You think I'm not committed? His face was a mask of hurt pride. I do everything for you, and this is the thanks I get. Todd recoiled. I'm just trying to help, he said. I want us to be honest. Theo's chest heaved. He grabbed Todd's shoulders, gaze wild. Then trust me, he hissed. Before Todd could respond, Theo's grip tightened. Summer's voice echoed from the hallway, Todd. Everything all right? Theo released him at once, smoothing his shirt. Yeah, just needed a moment, he lied. Summer's eyes flicked between them, but she said nothing, letting them return to the living room. Todd's heart thundered. He forced calm and sat down, pressing his palms into his knees. He realized how quickly Theo shifted from contrite to controlling, how easily he could cast blame. And how dangerous that could become once the children were involved. Over the next week, the supervised visits began at the community center's family room. Jacob and Emily sat at a low table, coloring. Theo sat across, attempting to chat. Todd and Amanda watched from the adjacent room. Through the glass, Todd saw Theo's initial awkwardness melt into a warm smile as he coaxed Jacob to share a drawing. For the first time, Todd allowed himself a glimmer of hope. But as the session wore on, Jacob grew restless. He asked to go to the playground. Theo asked the supervisor, but she refused, not part of today's plan. Jacob's face crumpled. Theo's jaw tightened. He leaned forward and hissed under his breath. Jacob flinched. The supervisor intervened gently. Theo, remember your breathing exercise. Theo nodded, flipping through a small booklet of coping strategies. He placed his hand over Jacob's and said, I'm sorry, champ. Let's pick another color. The moment passed. But Todd saw the flicker of anger in Theo's eyes, as though Theo's love could turn to fury at any provocation. Afterwards, Amanda approached Todd. He was like a different man, she admitted quietly. But I could see the shadow in his eyes. Todd nodded, conflicted. The hope of seeing Theo succeed warred with the fear that he might fail, disastrously. That night, Todd lay awake as rain pounded against the window. He thought of the children's faces, trusting Theo, of the counselor's warnings that relapse was possible, of Billy's blunt assessment that Theo was a ticking time bomb. He turned over, facing the wall, wrestling with the question, could Theo truly change, or was Todd merely setting himself up for devastation? A soft knock on the door startled him. Summer slipped in, concern written across her features. You look wrecked, she whispered. She sat on the edge of the bed. Talk to me. Todd sighed. I don't know what to believe anymore. He was so gentle today, so caring. But I saw the anger flicker, just for a second, and I can't forget how fast it comes. Summer nodded. He's walking a tightrope, Todd. One misstep, and he could fall back. But he's trying. You have to decide if that's enough for you. Todd closed his eyes, overwhelmed. I just want to protect him, and myself. Summer reached out and squeezed his hand. Whatever you decide, we'll support you. The following afternoon dawned bright and clear, yet beneath the sunshine, tension simmered. A community fundraiser at the cabin was the backdrop for Theo's next test, a meet and greet with social services, community leaders and donors. It was Theo's chance to showcase his rehabilitation, to prove he belonged. Todd watched as Theo thanked guests, spoke of his vision for supporting vulnerable families, and shared anecdotes about Jacob's drawings. There was charisma and sincerity. As the crowd applauded, Todd felt a surge of pride and relief. But as the afternoon wound down, Billy cornered Todd in the courtyard. "Watch this," he murmured. Nearby, Theo's ex-wife and Leslie watched the same scene. Amanda shook her head, mouthing bravado. Leslie frowned, taking notes. Billy leaned close. "It's showmanship, not substance." He tapped his temple. "He knows the right words. But words are easy. Actions, not so much." Todd swallowed his anxiety. He's done more in the last month than most people manage in a year. Billy's expression softened. "You love him. I get that. But love doesn't fix brokenness. You know that." He paused, then added quietly, "Be ready for the fallout." That evening, as the fundraiser chairs were stacked and lights dimmed, Theo and Todd walked home under a sky painted with stars. Todd reached for Theo's hand. "You were amazing today," he said genuinely. Theo smiled, fingers entwining with Todd's. "For you and for them," he replied, nodding toward home, but his gaze flicked past Todd, distant and unreadable. At the doorstep, they paused. Theo turned to Todd, voice low. "I know I'm not perfect," he said. "But I need you to know I'm trying for all." His words were cut off by the shrill ring of his phone. He glanced at the screen, then flinched. "It's work." Todd recognized the panic behind Theo's eyes. "You don't have to answer." Theo hesitated, then stepped aside. He spoke in clipped tones, shoulders tensing. Todd waited, dread building. Finally, Theo ended the call and exhaled sharply. "That was my solicitor. Something's come up with the police inquiry. They want to see me tomorrow." Todd's chest tightened. "Again?" Theo ran a hand through his hair. "It's procedural. They are digging into Oddie's accident, checking for negligence charges." He forced a laugh. "Can't a bloke have a break?" Todd sighed. "I'll be there." Theo's head snapped up. "No. This one's mine. I need to handle it alone." Todd felt the old fear claw at him. "Let me help," he pleaded. "You don't have to face it by yourself." Theo's eyes softened. He brushed a fingertip across Todd's cheek. "I know," he said quietly. "And I don't want to. But this is my mess." There was an unspoken apology in his gaze, a recognition that the very qualities that drew Todd in also pushed him away. That night, Todd lay awake, buffeted by doubt and longing. He thought of Jacob and Emily, innocent caught in the crossfire of Theo's past and present. He wondered whether love could truly heal, or if it would only bind him to a future filled with bruises and broken promises. At dawn, Todd rose with resolve. Whatever lay ahead, he would stand by Theo, but only as long as he could keep his heart intact. And if the truth threatened to shatter them both, Todd would have to choose whether to hold on or finally let go. As the new day began, Weatherfield awoke to the news of Theo's continued police involvement. In every pub and shop, whispers spread. Is Theo Silverton a hero, or a hidden threat? Todd followed the murmurs, knowing that soon, everyone would demand answers. And he would have to decide whether those answers could ever include him.